All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Tommy Ferguson and I am the Executive Director of Capital City Village. All the folks on our call this afternoon are members of Capital City Village, members and/or volunteers, but we are live streaming and do know that we might have an expanded audience. So for those that would like to learn more about Capital City Village, please visit our website at capitalcityvillage.org. And you can learn more about the programs and services that we offer to Austin seniors. And I would like to remind you of a couple of things coming up. Amplify Austin is just next week, March 2nd and 3rd, where 700 plus nonprofits around the Austin area will be participating and doing some fundraising. So please share that information with your friends, family, and neighbors. We are participating and do hope to raise some money for, again, for our volunteer services and for our very engaging programs like this one today. It is my honor to welcome Vanessa Miller. She is an accomplished healthcare professional with aspirations to be an equally accomplished writer of fiction. Dr. Miller is public health clinical nurse specialist and was recently certified by the University of California, San Francisco as a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Dr. Miller is a researcher and health policy advocate who has published in journals such as Substance Abuse, Experimental Biology and Medicine, and the Journal of Women's Health. Her most recent publication was in the Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment, a piece entitled COVID-19 Surveillance and Black American Substance Use Disorder, an examination of data and policy. Dr. Miller currently resides in San Bruno, California. However, prior to moving there, she was a longtime resident of Texas, growing up in East Texas and spending most of her adult years in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Her basic education and roots as a writer are grounded in Texas. She continues to have many friends and gain inspiration from Texas. However, she has lived and traveled all over the world. She describes her biggest challenge as merging the ignorant innocence of her childhood in East Texas with the sometimes ugly adult realities of the rest of the world, moving seamlessly from science to fiction. So it is now my great pleasure to welcome Vanessa Miller. Vanessa, I'm going to turn it over, spotlight you as the speaker, and let you take it away. So thank you again for making some time with us this afternoon.
All right, thank you so much, Tommy. And again, I want to thank all of you guys for inviting me and really giving me the honor to think that I would have something to contribute to you guys. And I know that you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be giving up your Sunday afternoon if you didn't love writing, if you didn't love books, words. And so I feel like we're kind of a kindred spirit, and I can take it for granted that you love some of the things that are most dear to my heart, which is writing. I've always said that writing is my retirement plan. It's something that I'm really looking forward to when I can just focus on that. So I think it's going to be really great. Tommy has explained a little bit about what I do professionally. And I'll tell you right now that the context in which I do all this stuff is somewhat interesting because I work in higher education. And if those of you who are familiar with higher education, you might know that healthcare combined with higher education, that's kind of like a quagmire of issues. So again, doing healthcare and higher education is what I've spent most of my time doing. I have a disclaimer that I'd like to make, and that is that part of the tagline for my presentation today was that I'm a motivational speaker. Well, I'm not a motivational speaker in the terms of motivational speaker, but I do hope to be motivational in what I'm going to talk about today. And I use motivational techniques in my practice in terms of motivational interviewing and things like that. So even though I don't bill myself as a motivational speaker, I have a lot of respect for those individuals, and I have even more respect for what motivation can make us do. And so, in that vein, I call my manuscript my bestseller because, again, I'm already plugging into my mind. Hey, it's not just a manuscript. This is my bestseller. So, part of the objectives that I'd like to have for our time together today is I'd like to describe my writing journey, uh, how I got where I am today. I'd like to describe some of the efforts I've made to utilize just my lifelong experience, my work experience, all of that, the efforts to translate that into a book that someone would like to take their time to read. I value people's time, and if you're going to ask them to spend their time doing something, it really should be worthwhile. And then most importantly, I'd like to have some time just to hear from you guys and hear your reflection and some of your insight and your knowledge in terms of helping to guide me on down my writing path. So those are the three objectives that I have for today for me. And one of my core beliefs is that there's a bestseller in all of us. Everybody has at least one bestseller inside of them. The genre of the bestseller doesn't matter, it's in there. And for example, I have a very good friend, and she often talks about her life and some of the things that have happened in her life. And her bestseller, if I had to outline just the four acts, you know, if I'm talking about a play or something like that, the four acts of her life, and it would Act one would begin with her death. Act two, her birth. Act three, surviving a major war, being displaced from her country, being separated from all of her family. And Act four, the resiliency, the recovery, and overcoming, and everything that has happened in her life. And she often tells me English is not her native language. And so she tells me, oh gosh, I wish I could just speak English better and I would write my book and it would just, people wouldn't believe what my life has been like. So all of us have some of those experiences somewhere inside of us, and I strongly believe that. Now, is it just going to pour out like a fountain or something like that? You guys know, no, it's not going to happen that way. It's a lot of work, and that's what I've had to learn in my journey of trying to be a writer. So I grew up in the 60s in the South. That was a time when my life was filled with a lot of sensations. I mean, there's nothing like East Texas in the summer, in the spring, you know, when the flowers are blooming and the earth is being replenished from all the rain and the bad weather that we get in Texas. But I was just filled with all these sensations, but I didn't have any resources. You know, I didn't have anything to express it, to bring it out. And when my mother had a thing, when we would complain, us kids, when we would say, "Mom, I'm bored," or "What can I do?" or you know, "I want this," or "I want that," she would say very matter of factly, "Go read a book." And I mean, it wasn't, she didn't say it sarcastically or whatever. It's just like, it's quite obvious. If you're bored, go read a book. And so I took her up on that. I couldn't do anything else. And so I gave it a try. And she was so absolutely right. That's why I fell in love with books. I fell in love with words. I just knew that books and words would always be a part of my life. I was one of the five kids in my high school class who took Latin. There were only five of us. Now, any class with five students in it, that class is not going to make. It's going to be wiped off the books forever. And I think about, you know, there's a few people are going to miss out on that opportunity. So fortunately, I came up at a time where they didn't focus so much on the finances and the economics of school. It was just about giving kids what they thought they needed. So we had a Latin class, and there were only 5 people in it, but boy, I had a great time, and I learned a lot about words. So again, due to my family's lack of money and stuff, and I know it's hard to believe, but at that time, it was really hard to get paper. Okay, now we just throw away paper. It's a nuisance. But getting paper that I could write on and write my bestseller on, that was like my biggest challenge. So I wrote my bestseller on the back of one of my father's drafting manuals. He was a contractor, and he would bring these big, thick manuals home with words and numbers that I didn't care anything about. But the most important thing was they only printed on one side of the page. So I could use the other side to write my bestseller. And I wrote it on that thing with just a pencil. I needed a pencil so that I could erase. So I wrote it by hand with a pencil on the back of one of my father's contracting manuals. So after I had written it, and it was quite a bit, I couldn't count the pages, but after I had written it and I used that whole manual, the next thing was to find a way to type that sucker up, okay? Because it was the best thing next to sliced bread, and I needed to type it up. So I showed you guys earlier a picture of an Olivetti typewriter, and I nagged my mother and nagged her until she got me one of those. She enrolled me in a correspondence typing school, and part of the course came with that Olivetti typewriter. So now I'm really on a roll. Okay, now I'm gonna type it up. So I got busy. I typed it up. Using the few funds that I had, I bought the best paper. That thick bond paper that just feels so nice when you rub your fingers on it. So I bought that and I typed that sucker up. And remember, you couldn't erase that good, so I had to be really careful. If I messed up, it was a struggle. It wasn't like now with word process, but I was determined. I typed it up, ended up being 300 pages. I found a way to mail it, and off to the publisher it went. And I was just like, okay, it's only a matter of time on my way to fame and fortune. Well, short period of time, I got that rejection letter uh, from that publisher, and that was that. I was 13 years old at the time when all of this happened. And I got the rejection letter, and rejection for a 13-year-old is pretty tough. It's tough on all of us, but 13-year-old, it's kind of like, am I going in the wrong path or whatever? So after I got over my heartache and pain, I put my bestseller aside and I focused on other things. I didn't return to it. I didn't do anything else to it until I was in college. When I went to college, I pulled that sucker out. I pulled those 300 pages out again, and I read it. And I asked my roommate to read it. Well, I understood why that publisher sent that back to me. He was nice to send it back. I think now they probably just dump it in the trash and wouldn't even respond to me or anything. So to send it back with any feedback after I read it, I say, hey, that was a pretty nice guy. This is a mess. I need to fix it. So I looked at it. It was such a mess. I was immediately discouraged, and I said, "Okay, not right now. I'll work on this a little bit later." So I went to college, graduate school, got a job, did more training, more college, more work, more training, and then finally, um, and while I'm in college, I'm still writing. I'm still catering my career around writing because even though my bestseller is on hold, my love for writing is still inside. So I transferred my fiction writing into academic writing. And I had all this vocabulary, I had all these great words and stuff like that. So I transferred all of that into my academic writing. Well, once again, I got a shock. So when I submitted my first academic publication, which was my I don't know if you guys can see this, but basically, when I have a back screen, it doesn't work out. Well, I did my dissertation and I had all this language and stuff, and I put it in there. And immediately the editors scratched it all out. They deleted all of my flowery prose. I mean, I thought it was beautiful. They only wanted the point, get straight to the point. Uh, don't put all this flowery language in there. We don't want all of that. So I followed directions and I took it all out and I said, okay, well, at least I'm 80% there. At least I can't get everything I want, but I'm getting 80% of what I want. So I'll just keep doing it. And I continued to do academic writing. I put all of my beautiful prose to the side. I didn't think about it. I just did academic writing. I was somewhat fulfilled by that. Like many of us are, we have a job. We don't exactly hate our job, but it's not the best job. It's not our dream job. So I was doing a job that I liked, but it wasn't my dream job, which was to work on that bestseller. Then COVID came. On top of everything else, here we are with COVID. And I'm in the worst possible position because I'm in healthcare and I'm also in academia training healthcare professionals. And without getting into everything that is COVID, I learned that I was in a really tight situation. The 80% enjoyment that I was getting out of life, I wasn't even getting the 80%. The last article that I wrote about COVID, um, I wrote it and I felt like it was really what we needed to hear and what I needed to write. But the science and everything was changing so rapidly. By the time it came out in print, it was already somewhat obsolete. So my 80% satisfaction is dropping to 60, 50, or whatever. So I became part of the great COVID resignation. Even though I love my job and it had given me 80% satisfaction for most of my life, that 20% I found out was very important to me. So as part, and I feel like a lot of other people felt the same way. That's why we had this resignation. And so my bestseller, I call it my bestseller, and I believe there's something in everybody, and we can call it generically, but it's that desire for fulfillment. So I resigned my job, and I pulled that bestseller out again. And in the meantime, I had been doing little things. I had been, when you're working on a book or a manuscript or something, it's kind of always on your mind. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but it's always there. There's always some tension there about whatever you're working on. So I had been working on certain things. One thing I did was I transferred or I created a business and I started looking at my writing as a business, not just something that I did to pass time because writing uses up resources. You're going to use ink, you have to have paper. I mean, just as in the 60s, I needed resources. Again, here I needed resources. So, speaking with my accountant, taking classes, working with individuals such as those in the Writers League of Texas, being put in contact with other writers who were writing And I was told to not look at my writing as just a hobby or a part-time deal. I needed to look at it as a business that requires resources and that utilize resources. So I turned my writing into a corporation here in California. It is the business structure is an S corporation, and that enables me to really treat it like a business, to the resources that I use to get tax credit for those resources, and really think strategically about my business. I utilize resources again from other writers and people in the field. And even though I have read my manuscript or my bestseller 100 times, I realized that now I'm at the stage where I need a professional. And I need to invest in a professional editor to really look at it and take me over that next step. And so I hired a professional editor, and I'd like to show you here. I'm going to share screens again, and I'm going to show you where I am now with it, and get some feedback from you guys as to what you've done, where you think I should go, and any other suggestions that you might have. Um, so what I did, I formatted my bestseller as I would any other manuscript that's ready to go to print. I make it a little bit bigger so everybody can see. I formatted it, and when I sent it to the editor, it was a Word document. And then I formatted it because my dilemma now is there's so many platforms for publication. When I started, the options were go to the mailbox with your manuscript, send it off, and hope that somebody reads it. But now we have so many different platforms. We have the traditional platforms where we write this fantastic manuscript, we get it in the hands of a publisher, and they're excited. They publish it, they market it, they do all this stuff and whatever. Well, that's that's one option, but it's filled with challenges, as are most things. So I formatted it for several things. I can do the traditional publication, or I can do self-publication, or I can do print to order, or and look at every possible platform that's available. My company is Elephant Tusk Publications if I choose to self-publish. I've already obtained the ISBN, and that gives me some options. Dedication, my mom and my family, and all of the basics that gives me more options of what I should do. And then the comments from the editor. Now, one thing I learned as in research is never destroy your original data. Always keep your original data untouched. So when I sent it to the editor, when I had it professionally edited, I've never destroyed that file. The file that I got from the editor, I've never destroyed it. I've never touched it or changed it. And so this is what you're looking at. And it's kind of like my blueprint. And you can see all of the comments, all of the wonderful feedback that I've gotten, again, from a professional editor, someone who's paid to do this. And as I work through it, again, other errors come out, but uh, she helped me to tighten it up. The basic idea, your basic idea for your bestseller is never wrong. uh, if you stick to your basic idea, you're always going to be right. But by using various tools and resources, we can always make it better. We can make it more generalizable, which is a term again that we use in research. We want it to be appealing to people who like to read, people who like words, people who can critique it and understand. So this is where I'm at now, uh, with my original critique edited document. There are 400 pages. And again, this is what I can expect if I go to print. I'm going to be anywhere between 350 and I'm going to say maybe 300 pages. When I clean it up, I think I'll have about 300 pages. And I'm back to getting joy out of writing, not just and I'm getting the joy from the realistic aspect of just putting my feelings on paper in a way that I believe that people will understand, and then looking at the various platforms again that are available that will allow me to publish and get it out into the hands of the public. So and this is about 100,000 words. That was something else I learned as I'm looking at the publishing thing. Uh, they don't want to know how many pages you have. They want to know how many words you have. Uh, and just learning about the publishing industry, treating it as a business, and then finding my own fulfillment in what I'm writing and really enjoying it. So that's kind of my this is my journey in terms of writing, publication, doing something that I really love. And I would welcome any feedback that you guys may have to help me to continue on my journey. And maybe the next time I see you guys, I will have uh, incorporated all of the editorial advice, and I'll be moving on to the next step.
Oh, that is great. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for giving us that overview. That's fantastic. I know I have a couple of questions and I'd like to just start off, but we do want to open it up so others, you can either use the raise hand function under reactions, or we've got a crowd and I'll scan through and you can kind of raise your hand or chime in. But one of the questions that I'm curious about is one of the, I guess it's a writing theory person, Frank Kermode, who wrote this book, Sense of an Ending, and my husband often refers to it in his teaching. But one of his quotes was, "It is ourselves we encounter whenever we invent fictions." And so I'm wondering, as you wrote this, what part of it or how much of it is yourself coming through? And also kind of as a follow-up to that, you've got such an extensive background in public health and in the medical and academic arenas. And I'm wondering how much of that played into or came into to really was realized in some of the fiction as well.
Well, when I first pitched my bestseller to a publisher, he said, oh, so you write dark fiction. And I'm kind of like, okay, it's fiction, but I hadn't put the word dark onto it. And I think it became, and I still don't see it as dark fiction. I see it as life. It's I agree with you when you say it's what's in us or it's a part of us or something like that. I think you do better when you write about what you know and what you care about. And even though I've always known I wanted to write, the exact subject matter was not clear to me. because I was still developing. And since I have written over time, I realized that a lot of what I work with, a lot of what I see, a lot of what I do is comes out in my writing. And so, uh, yeah, it even though it's fiction, it becomes a part of us. And the hardest thing with me is that so much of the work that I do with individuals is confidential. If you go to the doctor, if you go in healthcare, confidentiality is key, and it's gotten even worse recently. Sometimes it's hard for a spouse to get information because the rules of confidentiality are so strict. And so I'm very aware that I should not let anything come through my writing that would inadvertently betray the confidentiality of the people who trust me, even though much of what I've written has nothing to do with the people, individual cases, but it's what I know. And there may be a thought that, hey, she's talking about this person or she's talking about that person. No, I was talking about that before I knew this person or that person. But I do have to be very careful that there is uh, not even any assumption that anything in my writing is related to the patients or the work that I do.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you talk about having the the bestseller or the manuscript that you're working with, and I, knowing a handful of writers, I think there's not one that I know that doesn't have something in the drawer, something that's been in the drawer maybe for quite a few years, and so yeah, I certainly understand that. I'm going to open it up and see, are there other questions? I'm going to scan really quickly and just see if you want to. There we go. Hey, Mart, go ahead. I see your hand.
Dr. Vanessa, this is not about writing, but your background of writing. Where did you grow up in East Texas?
I grew up in Tyler, which is not far from Austin, where you guys are. And so I love the city of Austin. And of course, one of your members there is my great friend, and she has contributed to my growth as a person and as a writer. But yeah, I grew up in Tyler.
My first job was in Crow, Texas, between Hawkins and Mineola, 5 miles into the wilderness off Highway 80 at a wilderness therapeutic camp for children.
Okay.
And my wife taught at John Tyler High School, taught German and biology.
Yeah, I graduated from John Tyler.
All right.
They recognized that Latin was important. Only if they had 5 students in there, Latin was important. So yeah.
I was the only German teacher also.
And she had a small, very bright class. It was really,
yeah. It's important. Sometimes it's not about the number. It's about the content and the quality. And like I said, again, unfortunately, we're losing some of that in certain schools because they have to decide between the economics and other things. But I'm so glad that I had it when I was coming up.
all right. Go John Tyler.
Yes.
That's perfect. Small coincidences.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to scan. I think Pam, you have a question, if you'll go ahead.
I do. Dr. Miller, you talked about there being a lot of different platforms now for self-publishing.
Yes.
Maybe you've learned something along the road there in terms of maybe what some of the easier or more accessible ones are that could be helpful if any of us were interested in doing that.
Well, right now I'm trying to get it into self-publishing format, but I think that um, Amazon has a platform. I don't know. I started off using that platform, but I haven't gone back to it recently. They've made a lot of changes and adjustment. So I know Amazon had that print on demand platform, the self-publishing platform. And I think there are a lot of others. If you,
Yeah.
you know, you Google, you've probably seen some of them, and you just have to decide, hey, what's going to work for me and what do I like? Um, I haven't found one that really appeals to me. That's why I said, well, why don't I create my own publishing company? Not that I'm going to
Yeah.
use it that much, but if I find maybe a middleman or a vendor who would work with me in terms of print on demand, then I may do something a little different.
Right. Well, thank you. I have a friend that used the Amazon platform, and she said it was pretty simple. Just slide stuff in, and yeah.
Okay, okay. They changed it. Um, I think they used to call it Create Space, and now I don't think they call it Create Space. But when it was Create Space, it was pretty simple, and I did use it in one version of my manuscript.
Yeah, and this is pre-pandemic, so it's at least 2 years ago that she did it. So it could
Yeah.
have changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and I'll scan again just to see if there are any other questions. Barbara Kaiser, it looks like if you want to go ahead and then we'll call on Sue.
Yeah, I'm wondering when you write over a very long period of time and we all change, how do you accept what you originally wrote without changing it with new knowledge?
That's kind of a struggle, but if you're in a certain time period, I usually go by the time period. Where are my characters centered at? And then I try to stay true to that time period and really just block out any new knowledge that I may have. If my time period is at a time when before cell phones, then I have to constantly keep myself in that time period. And I'm constantly collecting newspaper clippings when I'm working on something. I keep a file of pertinent things that may happen during that period of time or whatever. And so I try to stay focused where I'm at. And that way, if new knowledge does come along, it doesn't impact my story as great as it would if I had to constantly go back and forth. So I'm staying in a specific time period.
Okay.
Okay, great. And then I think Sue, you go ahead.
Right. I was thinking about your self-publishing, Vanessa, and I may have missed this, but how do you don't have an editor at a publishing company. How do you choose the right people to read your work and make comments on it?
Well, I use freelance editors. So, there are a lot of, and this is where networking, I find networking extremely helpful. And when I get an opportunity to hang out with people such as yourself, other people who are interested in writing, then they introduce me to other people. So I use a freelance editor.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. So if you could maybe give us just a little preview or kind of a teaser trailer for the book and the content, how would you describe it sort of?
Okay. And I meant to do that earlier, but if I'm pitching something, I'm going to say that this is like Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. And when I started writing it, this is coming, it was just like what is the most fantastic or amazing thing that I could think of? And I've always liked science fiction. So my manuscript was more science fiction than anything else. And when I talk to editors or publishers, and they never use the word science fiction, I don't know why, but they'd always say dark fiction. This is dark fiction or something. And I'm like, well, I think it's more science fiction. And it's really based on reproduction and what is happening in the reproduction arena. Um, it's it's not necessarily cloning, but if you think about Margaret Atwood and The Handmaid's Tale, it's focused on a society or something like that. And the lady who asked me about how do I stay true to changes or whatever, when you're dealing with, in my mind, science fiction and something that is kind of way out there, then I'm not so tied to certainties. I create my own world. So it's a Margaret Atwood type piece where I'm looking at a generation of individuals who are grossly impacted by genetics, genomics, and the things that we can do now for reproduction. And that kind of came again from what I know, um, since they have interpreted the genomic sequence. We're seeing the amazing things they can do. You know, they're finding criminals. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to commit a crime. Not that I'm trying to commit one, but it's getting harder and harder to commit a crime and get away with it because of DNA. Well, that's one of the positive things, but the impact of what we've been able to do in genetics, the knowledge that we have about genetics. Now we are creating drugs that are based on people's genetic profile. And when I started writing it, I didn't know that we would be at this point. It was just like in my mind, a child who was heavily influenced by Frankenstein. I'm thinking, man, what if we could create something like that? What if we could make a person? And what does that business, you notice the title of my manuscript is The Business. What does that business look like? So that's my dark fiction on the style of Margaret Atwood, looking at a society that has just perfected itself almost to the point of extinction.
That sounds fascinating, actually. I'm going to scan really quickly. I have another. Oh, here we go. Ellen, go ahead.
How prescient you were as a child to be thinking that way, looking at where we are today in the world.
Yeah.
And it just another thought I'll throw in here. I was a language arts teacher. I love words. Don't read as much as I should, but I have in the past. My only publishing experience was my mother was very much interested in genealogy, and she had some findings that she thought were significant. And I helped her get that all typed up and published in this little bitty skinny thing that was delivered to the local genealogy libraries. Then after that, discovered that, when I was growing up, no internet, no emails, literally, I wrote to my mother 3 times a week when I was in college and after I married. And as we were cleaning out things at my mother's house after her death, she had all those letters still. And I have a fabulous collection of letters from my husband's side of the family that goes back to the 1700s. So I had this wonderful idea, have a title, When We Wrote Letters. And after listening to you, Vanessa, and several other writers in this series, I don't have the patience to ever get there with it. It may be just a little skinny something for the family.
Well, what if you put it together and if you pass it on, just because and that's what I'm seeing now. And I think that uh my mind is saying George Burns, but it may not have been him. He's a videographer. He's done a lot of biopics or whatever. He did the Civil War, and he did like a
Ken Burns.
historical. Ken Burns, yes.
There we go.
And that whole thing is almost, he's going back and he's reading letters from people that people wrote during the Civil War. And without those letters, there would not have been a way for Ken Burns to go back and really create that period in time. So sometimes what I say is just, you may not get all the way from your desk to the publishing and then disseminating it out to thousands and thousands of people, but do find a way to preserve it, because it may not be you. It may be your niece or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren who will need to go back and say, hey, I got this from my great great ancestor, Ellen Ward, and these are the stories, and they may be the one to disseminate your bestseller.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's excellent. All right, I'm going to scan really quickly, but I have another thing to interject. Vanessa, when you were talking about sort of your early love of books and your early interest in writing, in creating something from words, it reminded me so much of, I don't know if you've heard about it, but this recent story of this 8-year-old boy in Boise, Idaho, who wrote his own book and, put it in, a sort of a notebook thing and inserted it in his local library, put his own the whole thing. And of course it was discovered, and the librarians were so taken with it that they actually helped him publish it. And it now rightly resides in the library where he sneaked it in. Did you feel that sort of compulsion to really get something out, that you had to have something that you put on paper? It sounds like that was something that was really just like you had to manifest it. You had to create it.
Exactly. And I saw that story and I was delighted just by his, his ingenuity and sticking to it, just he wrote it, he got it into the library, he stuck it there. So I was amazed by that. But that's kind of how I felt. I feel like children go through a period when they are at the height of their creativity. And if that is nurtured or accepted or whatever, you'll be amazed at what they can do. And I see it now in children who make the TikTok videos and the influencers. I'm just kind of like, what? And they're making millions of dollars for showing you how to put on makeup or something like that. And that's something that we very much need. I can see teenagers needing to know how to put on their makeup and what to use on their hair and stuff like that. So nurturing that creativity, I feel like is very important in youth. And if it's done when we're young, it'll continue throughout our lifetime. So yeah, I saw that. It was really great.
It was very inspiring.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, I will scan again and see. Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that Vanessa, with her last answer but one, added to my do list. As a person who left home and emigrated at the age of 18, I have kept every single letter I think that was ever written to me. And I think it's about time that I put them all into some kind of order.
Yeah. Because, and I see people, one of my regrets is that I didn't journal more when I was coming up. I didn't journal consistently and didn't journal things that were happening in my life and that were significant to me. And I wish I had put some of those things to paper, but letters are extremely valuable. And if you have them and you can catalog them or organize them in some way, and you know, either pass them down through family, or libraries are wonderful places where, you know, you may say, hey, I'd like to donate these letters to the library or something. But I wouldn't throw them away. I wouldn't shred them or anything like that. I think they're very valuable.
The point is making sure the family doesn't shred them after I die.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I think if you put them together, I don't think there's much of a chance. I think they will treasure them so much, you know, and be grateful. Hey, look, this is what he left us. So please put them. They will throw them away if you don't organize them in a way or something, because they just won't know the value, and they'll be trying to put stuff together. So they probably will throw them away. But I say now that letters are much too valuable to just let them be thrown away.
Here, here.
Yeah.
All right, Ellen, do you have another? Go ahead.
I have a good friend whose either grandmother or great grandmother, when she moved to Texas, married and moved to Texas, her father gave her a journal. She continued to write a daily journal until her 80s. And my friend Cynthia has all those journals, and she didn't want to lose them for the family's sake. She got in touch with the library in Dallas. They digitized them, and they're available to anybody who wants to read them.
Yes.
So that is a fabulous resource and a way to save things like that.
Exactly. And that's how we get a lot of our history. I went to Texas Women's University, and periodically they would have a exhibit where they would have letters that people had written about. Just when they were writing, it was just like, hey, this is my daily life. I'm just updating you on what's happening. But those things come to represent some of the most accurate tellings of history that we can find. So, and libraries, I love librarians. I love them. I feel like if I ever need to know anything, go to a librarian. They can tell you, or they can find out for you. And they're really underutilized. People don't utilize librarians as, you know, as much as they should. And they are a great resource.
Here, here to that as well. Yeah, I know a couple personally and love them and love what they do. It's amazing. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
I have another question, slightly different subject, Vanessa, but when you go for your writer in residence year, what do you do that year? You have obligations? Do you have time to do what you want? How does that work?
Oh, you mean my residency in Alaska?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because I think I have more time. I'm just focusing on psychiatric issues. And one thing, COVID did a lot, as you guys may know, but one of the sad things was the number of young adults who manifested psychiatric problems. So I have the ability to set my own schedule to work with the patients that I prefer to work with. Yeah. And
Okay, it's not a writer residency, it's a psychiatric.
Exactly, it's a
I'm
psychiatric
sorry, I
residency.
didn't hear that correctly.
Yeah, it's a psychiatric residency.
Are you particularly interested in, I come from this background too of being a psychotherapist. So are you particularly interested in the COVID, I guess, aftermath, or are you interested in some particular aspect of mental health?
I'm really interested in mental health as COVID opened up something that those of us in mental health have known for quite some time, and that's the mental health of young people, um, young adults, adolescents, and COVID put a different light on that. Substance abuse, the weaknesses of humankind, and that kind of goes again back to my manuscript. Um, I'm looking at what makes people tick. I guess that's the best way to put it. What makes people tick on a fictional level, but on another level to make people really take a look at this. If you've noticed any pictures on TV, usually when they make a movie about mental illness, like Shutter's Island with Leonardo DiCaprio, the one with Jack Nicholson, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If you look at anything, even when it's fictionalized, if it's related to mental illness or thought processes or what happens to something that we don't know as much as we'd like to know about our brain. And I'll give you an example. I was talking to one of my friends recently, and she's a teacher, and she was talking about electroshock therapy. And in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Academy Award winning picture. I even purchased the screenplay. I loved it so much until I wanted to see how they did the screenplay. Well, you look at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, electroshock therapy was one of the big things. And it's still like one of those unknown things that we do. And a lot of people consider electroshock therapy barbaric, brutal. So my friend tells me, she said she was talking to a patient about electroshock therapy. And the patient was like, oh my God, that's barbaric. How can you guys, are you guys still doing that? I can't believe you guys are still doing that. And my friend says, have you ever seen open heart surgery? She said, open heart surgery, she said, they take your heart out of your body, they put it to the side and they work on it. They open your chest, they pull your heart out and they do what they're going to do to it. Then they put it back in. She said, what could be more barbaric than open heart surgery? And if someone says, oh, I'm going to go and have open heart surgery, they're like, oh, is there anything I can do? There's the most empathy with you. But if you go and tell someone, I'm going to go and have electroshock therapy, they're like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? So she used that analogy. And what I'm saying is what I've learned as a writer. I've always liked science fiction, imagining the unimaginable. And then I get into healthcare, and especially mental health, especially the thing that drives humans and their motivation, which is all up here. And that's like the dark ages. We don't know anything about what happens up here and how it controls our actions, how it controls our feelings, our brain. We can't take our brain out and do what we're going to do and put it back in like our heart. So what I learned as a healthcare professional, and I don't know, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. You say, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I was interested in the fantastical before I ever went into healthcare. So my question is, was that what made me go into healthcare, or is that what makes me want to write about it? But it's just something about the brain and the way humans act and behave that is extremely fascinating to me. And I'm lucky that I'm able to work in that area as well as enjoying fantasizing and writing about it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and Gail, go ahead. I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm retired librarian. One of the things that has really been bothering me so much, I'm really so upset about, is the banning of books. And I'm not mistaken, I think Margaret Atwood's book, The Handmaid's Tale, is one of them. And so I don't know if I'm asking a question or I'm just making a statement, but it's like, I don't know what we can do about that.
I love books so much until I feel like it's sacrilege to burn them, to treat them in any way that is not respectful. I am hopeful that this is just a cycle we're going through and that it'll come back around. I just cannot condone taking books away from anybody for whatever reason, because you always have a choice. You can read it or you cannot read it. That's our ultimate basic choice. And I feel like we should always have it. So it's kind of scary to me. And it makes me feel like there's going to be a generation that's going to come after us that won't know these books. But then after that generation, I feel like these books will be discovered again because they're just too good and too valuable to just be wiped off the face of the earth forever. They're kind of like the letters that I encourage everybody to keep. One day your letters will be read and discovered. If they ban the books, one day those books will come back and they'll be read and discovered again. I just don't know how we got to this place that we're in right now.
Well, one of the positive, if you can say anything positive about this, is Spiegelman's book Mouse, which was banned, is now the #1 bestseller on Amazon. So,
yes. So by doing this, maybe you're bringing it to light, bringing something to light that other people have not seen. I'm really encouraged by the re-excitement, the reignition of people wanting to read. I can remember several years ago when, especially when big bookstores were closing and people were afraid, some of my librarian friends were afraid that people would stop reading. But I think that people are reading even more than before. My librarian friends were concerned. They said people are going to stop coming to the libraries. But I think they found a way to work around that and still to get the books into the hands of the people. So there's some positive as well as some negatives there, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely so. I have to agree that is positive that, if there's a banned book list, I think a lot of people see that as their reading list.
Yeah, I'm going to go get that.
Better go get that. Yeah, and read
exactly.
it. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the brutality of electric shock therapy. My late wife had the misfortune to have 2 grand mal seizures during the period when electric shock therapy was really popular. And she had 6 sessions of electric shock therapy, and we were never able to regain 3 years of her life. She never ever was able to put that 3 years. She just had flash memories and couldn't get them in any order or whatever. It was 3 lost years in which a lot of things actually happened. So yes, it's very barbaric. That's all I wanted to say.
And there's so much we don't know about it. What we found is that in some cases, it's like a miracle. There, in some cases, there's an excessive memory loss, and it's just, but it's still being used, but we don't understand uh, why it works for some people, why it doesn't work for other people, why we have the memory loss. There's just so much in our society now that we don't understand about it. But in some cases, we found that it's the only thing that works. So it's kind of interesting, and I just feel like we're still very primitive about the brain. Our brain is such a marvelously complex thing, and we just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, certainly would concur with that observation. I'm going to scan really quickly. I don't think we have any more questions. Oh, go ahead, Ellen. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
And quit commenting. I've recently discovered a wonderful website called The Bitter Southerner. And it's the opposite of what that title would imply. But one of the posts I got from them just this week, they sell products along with having wonderful writing. They have t-shirts, and one of their t-shirts is "Read Banned Books." I'm going to order one.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
So whenever they start banning books, I agree with Tommy. It just kind of stimulates people say, hey, you know, I better go and get that and read it. So it may have the opposite effect that they think that it's going to have.
I like that for a slogan on the t-shirt.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm scanning. I don't see any other questions, but so Vanessa, I would like to say again, thank you so much for giving us your time and talking a bit about your work, both professionally and your adventures in fiction. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you all for being here with us. And Vanessa, I do hope, as before we completely let you go, that you will let us know when, in whatever form it comes out, when your book is available.
I will. I will try to take some more of your valuable time if I can, but I'll certainly try to keep you guys posted. You can help me with my marketing.
There you go. That's right. In all things, it takes a village.
Takes a village.
All right. Thank you again so
Thank you,
much.
Vanessa.
Thank
Vanessa.
you guys, and enjoy that Texas weather, okay?
Thank you. Best of luck.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye all.